Introducing Scott Ritter's YouTube channel, a platform dedicated to discussing the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Scott Ritter, an expert in international relations, provides in-depth analysis and commentary on the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. With his extensive knowledge and first-hand experience, Scott Ritter offers unique insights into the historical background, geopolitical complexities, and humanitarian aspects of the conflict. Join his channel to gain a comprehensive understanding of the crisis, including its impact on regional stability and global politics. Through well-researched and balanced content, Scott Ritter's YouTube channel serves as a valuable resource for anyone interested in delving deeper into the Russian-Ukrainian war.
All right, we have another voicemail question. This comes from a woman named Anne. She has a question about Albanians.
Hello. I'm wondering how so many Albanians ended up in Kosovo. That seems to have been one of the things that ended up causing all these problems for Serbia. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Now I got to dig deep into my brain, having focused for Russia. Look, Serbia, the Serbian Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, etc., encompassed a large amount of territory, a lot of which wasn't populated by ethnic Serbs, and the province of Kosovo is one of these. The Albanians are, I believe, a people who were converted to Muslim under the Ottoman Empire. And so when the Ottomans were in this area, what is Kosovo today had a mixed population. They've been there from day one. They are Muslims who reside in Kosovo. They are, the Albanians. I think it's a separate ethnicity as well. So when, the Ottoman Empire withdrew, and it became the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and then Yugoslavia, and then Serbia, as things broken apart. Kosovo always had this mixed population, and the Albanians were always there. What happened during the Kosovo conflict is that Albanians from Albania, in particular, the Kosovo Liberation Army, which was an Albanian organization raised by the CIA, would travel over and provoke problems inside Kosovo to create the impression that the Serbians were oppressing the Albanian population. And this was called genocide and used by NATO to justify their 1999 78-day bombardment of Belgrade and Serbia.
All right, let's go to New York. And Sam Renoir, I guess it's pronounced, curious regarding military personnel reaction seeing their commander-in-chief hosting Pride Day and the disgusting video of attendees dancing topless on the White House lawn.
One of the difficult things of serving in the military is that you are required by law to not only obey the lawful orders of the, was this really happening?
Yeah. Oh, okay. You didn't know about this?
I didn't know about this.
Yeah, they had like a gay pride thing, and then a transgender person bared her breasts there. With their hands over them.
Yeah. Okay. That's different. But I mean, when you're in the military, you have to obey the lawful orders given you by your chain of command, and the top of the chain of command is the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief. And while you're on active duty, you are not allowed to articulate negative points of view about the Commander-in-Chief. And so sometimes you have to remain silent. But as the gentleman said, sometimes an expression speaks 1,000 words. I didn't see the expression, but I would imagine that most military people would have been stone-faced, focused on executing to the best of their capabilities, whatever task they were assigned, whether it is to stand post, to open a door, to provide assistance, and they would have tried to disassociate themselves from the events surrounding them, as they're supposed to do. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it wasn't actually a military event anyway. I mean,
No, you have military. You
personnel
have
on the scene.
the military support staff there, and
Okay.
no one wants to see that.
Ash from Oz. Thanks for giving some special attention to my Putin video suggestion. Nice to see Arkady taking all the credit whilst failing to ask my question. Now, I responded to this email, by the way. The idea to show the Putin video that we discussed.
Yeah.
This person apparently made the same suggestion, but I said it's just a coincidence. Arkady's not even involved in this show. He never saw it. So he's going, well, pretty big coincidence. Well, okay. That's okay. We can't all be geniuses. I think you called Arkady, I don't know, genius or brilliant for coming up with that idea. Here's another one for you. Given his recent comparison between the Bolsheviks and the woke agenda, could Putin be hinting or warning indirectly as to who might be behind the current American communist regime?
Well, we have a definition problem here. Current American communist regime. I would say that there's just no way in hell you could prove that point. At best, it's an opinion, and it's extraordinarily ill-formed opinion. It's not a communist regime in here. You can say what you want about Joe Biden. He's not a communist. Now, if you want to make the argument that certain schools of thought, for instance, such as the neocons, that they have as one of their ideological foundational points of origin, Trotskyite, philosophy and such. Go ahead and make that point. Joe Biden's not a communist. You don't know what communism means if you call Joe Biden a communist. I see the comments putting up there. If he's communist, where's the free health care? If he's communist, where's the free education? If he's communist, where's the free anything? He's not. Joe Biden is an American politician, a corrupt one at that. His policies are poorly formed, poorly implemented, poorly articulated, but they're not communist policies.
All right, let's get our insults in order, please. Sergey from Belarus. How exactly did the U.S. and West steal hundreds of trillions out of Russia in the 90s, and what happened with all the money? Don't the neocons know Russia would have gladly sold her resources at a discount pre-special military operation? And how much is the USA still importing from Russia today, sanction-free?
Well, I mean, how exactly did the U.S. West steal hundreds of trillions of dollars out of Russia in the 1990s? The exact number, I guess, hasn't been calculated. So I repeated that. I think I said trillions. I might have said tens of trillions. I might even have said 100 trillions. Who knows what I said? But what I do know is I haven't calculated the precise figure. So I'm just saying that up front in case anybody's going to run with that number and say, Scott Ritter said it was hundreds of trillions of dollars stolen from Russia. We don't know. It was trillions. We do know that. How was it done? Just blatant theft, and going in and taking advantage of a collapsed system to negotiate deals that no businessman would ever sign up to. Go take a look at the deals that were done by British Petroleum, by Chevron, Shell, just about every major international oil company going into Russia and agreeing to extract resources from Siberia, from the north, etc. The schemes were one-sided in terms of where that money was going. The Western oil companies made all the money. Russia got literally nothing. They were, I remember when I was in the United Nations being asked to be part of a scheme that would, to serve as a middleman. Basically, Russians were stealing all the precious metals they could get their hands on, and even any commodity such as copper, lead, steel, metal scrap. They're just stealing it from all the state institutions, stripping it bare, putting them on barges and shipping them to London. And then people would sit there and find buyers for it. So you find somebody who deals with that and you would offer them a discount none of the money, I mean, the money went in the pockets of people, but it didn't go to Russia. That's Russia's resources, state resources. The carving up of um, of state enterprises, and then the remarketing it as with shares, and having people like Khodorkovsky come around and rob these shares from people, denying them their inheritance from Soviet times. This was just blatant robbery, and it goes on. I mean, how does a Khodorkovsky get control of an oil company? How did that happen? Because he's a crook. And how much money did he make? Hundreds of billions. And if you multiply that by all the other crooks, thieves, scoundrels, it amounts to an awful lot of money. And when you extend that over the course of a decade and then extend it into the 2000s, 2010s, you end up having a lot of money stolen from Russia. End of story. That money didn't get reinvested back into Russia. It went into somebody's pockets. It went into real estate. It went into other things, but it didn't go back to Russia. And that's the big difference between then and now, because now the money being made by these oligarchs is being reinvested back into Russia.
All right. Our next question is from Peter in Moscow. I know this spelling of Peter. You are a very intelligent, reasonable, and knowledgeable person whom I'd never call a simple Marine. But as a Marine, have you ever watched NCIS? If yes, how truthful is it in representing United States Marine Corps and Navy values, policies, training, etc.?
NCIS is a Hollywood show. It's not truthful at all. It's glamorized. It's fictionalized. They build each story from, I guess they get a case and then they build it, but they have to populate it with interesting figures. Trust me when I say that the daily life of an NCIS agent investigating a crime of this sort is very mundane. A lot of paperwork. It's a Hollywood show. It's meant to be entertaining. I've watched it, but I cringe sometimes at the depiction of military people. Oftentimes, when they're trying to make a point about discipline or dedication or loyalty, they basically they overplay it. They over dramatize it. They make it seem black and white, and it's just not that. It's just not that way at all. So there's my answer.
There it is, indeed. Let's go now to Harry in Leuven. What aces do the Ukrainians have left to play in this conflict? Thus far, they have resorted to drone strikes inside Russia and blowing up a dam. What could the Russians expect next?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't call what a drone strike and blowing up a dam an ace. An ace is something that wins. Here they're throwing out just cards, and to say the drone strikes were a victory is an absurdity, because the drone strikes actually freed up the Russians to carry out counterattacks that hit decision-making centers that slaughtered senior Ukrainians and some of their NATO survivors. So if you're going to tell me that it's an even trade to have a drone go poof over the Kremlin for losing some of your most senior people and and all the investment that goes into those, I think you have you have a bad notion of what an equal trade is. The same thing, blowing up the dam. This is just an act of terrorism, and believe me, as the consequences of this action become known to the world, and the world reflects on who did this, the answer is Ukraine, and Ukraine will pay a heavy price. So there are no aces in the Ukrainian soil. Ukraine is literally a drowning person, and a drowning person thrashes even against the lifeguard that jumps in to save their life. And just because a drowning person lands an elbow to the nose doesn't mean the drowning person is winning or succeeding. They're either going to drown or they're going to get rescued, but they're not in charge. And that's the point about Ukraine. They're not in charge of anything.
Next, we go to London and Truth Seeker, the world famous Truth Seeker. You all know Truth Seeker. I'd like to bring up the USS Liberty attack again, as the 60th anniversary was last week. Was Lyndon B. Johnson the worst commander-in-chief for leaving his men to die rather than embarrass his Israeli friends?
Well, I'm loath to defend Lyndon B. Johnson, but he will not be alone in having Americans sacrificed for what he might say is the greater good, the necessity of maintaining a close relationship with Israel. He was willing to sacrifice the lives of so many Americans. So I think it was despicable what he did. I think more Americans should know the story of the USS Liberty, a United States surveillance ship that was attacked by Israel. Israel knew it was an American ship when they attacked it. They continued to attack it. Even when it was disabled in the water, they attacked it when Americans were trying to tend to their wounded. It disgusts me, and it's something that I don't believe we should ever forgive or forget.
Reza in Montreal, Canada. Ukraine is starting its offensive with 600,000 men and 200 tanks. Of these 600,000, only about 50,000 are new NATO-trained soldiers, and the rest were just taken off the street. Is that correct? How could that pierce Russian defenses?
Well, first of all, Ukraine's not starting its offensive with 600,000 troops. I think one might be able to make the case that the total mobilized strength of the Ukrainian military could approximate 600,000, but that would include regular forces, that would include the territorials, things of that nature. So that's not the case. The offensive is going to be carried out by units that are designated to be in the offensive. And as this person pointed out, it's going to be between 50 and 60,000 troops that were trained by NATO that have been organized into 12 brigades. Now, these 12 brigades aren't the only brigades. These are the assault brigades. The lines were held by other brigades, and those brigades are out there, and they will provide supporting role for the offensive. So it's not just the 50, 60,000. You're probably looking around 120,000 troops allocated to the current counteroffensive in terms of a direct participation mode. It has no chance in succeeding. They're not organized for this. They're not trained for this. They're not equipped for this. They don't have the planning support. They don't have the logistics support. They don't have anything. This counteroffensive will fail, and unfortunately, when it does, you're going to be looking at a good percentage of that 50 to 60,000 either being dead or wounded.
All right. Ann Moss is backstage curating the live questions. So let's get one or two more of the ones that were submitted in advance, and then we'll get to your live questions coming in on YouTube and Facebook. Adewunmi from Lagos, Nigeria. If a soldier is captured in war and later released due to a prisoner swap, would he be relieved from duty as a soldier, or would they send him back to combat?
It depends on the conditions of the release. During the American Civil War, oftentimes prisoners of war were paroled, meaning that rather than keep them in a prisoner of war camp, they would be returned to their country, but under the provision that they not fight again. And if they did fight, if they did take up arms and they were captured again, they would be executed on the spot for violating parole. I don't think any of the current prisoners are being paroled. I think this is a straight up swap. And so the answer is, you're a prisoner of war. You come back, you'll be evaluated by medical professionals. If you're determined to be physically fit, then you'll be returned to active duty to complete the duration of your contracted services. That's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Okay. If somebody who was a prisoner doesn't want to go back to combat, is that something that is considered, or is that not a thing?
Well, that would be, that would have to be addressed on a case-by-case basis. I can't imagine sending somebody back to combat on the Russian side. On the Ukrainian side, I can imagine anything, since they go around, they mug old men and, take their unconscious bodies and throw them into combat 3 days later. So the Ukrainians are capable of anything. But I would imagine if you were a prisoner of war, and you said, I don't want to go back to combat, that would be respected as sort of post-traumatic stress, and that you would be reassigned accordingly.
Right. Yeah, every situation is different, but in general, I would think somebody who was a prisoner of war was in an especially traumatic situation. So let's do just one more of the questions submitted in advance. And if you want your questions considered for the next episode, go to scottritter.us, scottritter.us. You can ask in a voicemail message, or you can type it out. Lionel Mandrake from Burleson, Arkansas. Our friend Michael Stadola is going to give us a lecture on that, too. That's not a real name. President Lukashenko just said that if attacked, he would not hesitate to use Russian nukes stationed in Belarus. Is it customary to allow a host country to make its own decision on the use of another country's nukes? Could Belgium and Italy nuke Russia out of their own volition?
Well, the answer to both of those is no. It's not customary. First of all, Lukashenko, um, notice the term to use Russian nukes. The Russians are under the custody of the nuclear weapons that will be sent to Belarus this July are under the custody of Russia, and they belong to Russia, and they can't be released without Russian concurrence. So if Belarus is attacked and a situation arises where nuclear weapons are being considered, then Russia could release the nuclear weapons that have been earmarked for Belarus to Belarusian control, and then Belarus would be able to launch these weapons as part of a overall Russian nuclear response, and that's the purpose of it. But no, Lukashenko can't wake up in the morning and go, "Damn it, I'm tired of Poland. I'm going to take it out with my nukes." Isn't going to happen, and neither can the Belgians or the Dutch or Italy do the same thing. The B-61 bomb that's part of the NATO nuclear umbrella is an American bomb under American control and American custody, and would only be released to the respective NATO countries, if a decision was made by the United States and the NATO Council that NATO would employ nuclear weapons.
All right. Ann Moss, backstage, curating the questions. What do you have for us? And questions from our beloved audience. Tell us how you were met in Sochi. I lived in Sochi for 30 years. Did you like it? And the Olympic Park, have you been there? With love from Sochi.
I was met very well in Sochi, embarrassingly well. They treated me and my daughter with the utmost respect, and we were given a tour of the Olympic Park by the man who built it, and by the people who operated it. And when I say operated, I mean the people who run it. They were extraordinarily kind. They allowed me to play archer for a day. I got to shoot arrows at the target. I was instructed by the chief instructor of the Russians. I got to replicate Ronaldo's famous goal that was scored at the Sochi Stadium during the FIFA event. So they let me play Ronaldo. They taught me how to use hockey sticks. They showed me everything. We got a wonderful tour of the facility, and we were given a wonderful tour of the city. Far too little time. That was sort of the curse of this entire trip, was that every place we went was wonderful, but every place we went, we could have easily spent a week, a minimum there, probably more. In Sochi is a city that you could definitely spend more time in. I wish we had more time, but I love the city. It's a vibrant city. It's a beautiful city with a great history and great current relevance. I mean, it is a sports town. It's a place where Russian athletes are trained. International athletes can train there if they want to. Top-notch facilities in a top-notch city with top-notch climate and world-class Mother Nature.